Greetings. I'm the alien scientist, and I've been researching and investigating claims of science and technology, classified science and technology related to aerospace, defense, weapons technology, you name it. Any type of conspiracy, you name it. We've been investigating this kind of stuff for the past 10 to 15 years. I went to Bridgewater State College here in Massachusetts. Got a 4-year degree in physics with a minor in math, just to give myself a little bit more science and education background, to give myself more leverage in investigating stuff. And I'm going to share with you guys all my research today into a variety of technologies and cases, which I'm going to just to briefly cover and explain to you why they're better than Bob Lazar and the Element 115 nonsense, which we're seeing paraded around the mainstream media. They tried to put it out on Larry King even. They had an interview with Larry King, and it only got 3,000 views. Their disinformation's losing. They have a bunch of, they have a core following of pretty hardcore believers who are dumber than anything I've ever seen before. These people believe that Bob Lazar predicted element 115, and how could he have predicted this element 115, this Moscovium? And I want to do a little experiment. I want to try to ask people to post pictures of this and get a thing going. I already have a Twitter thing going on my Twitter account about this. Go find a chemistry book, high school chemistry book from the 1970s. Bob Lazar graduated from West Tresper Clark High School in New York in 1975. Go find a chemistry book from the 1970s and let me know if take a picture of the periodic table inside that book and post it up. I just want to see the results, and because I distinctly remember chemistry books back in the day, and looking at old chemistry books, they used to have all these upper elements in the upper half of the periodic table of elements laid out in 300 years of the periodic table. Check this out. You search for this video, it'll give you the 300-year history of the periodic table, and it will show you. You can fast forward in the video to around the year 1970, 1960s, and this is all the radioactive elements were being discovered, and all the chemistry books back in the 70s, right around this time, they all had all these upper elements in parentheses saying, these are predicted, though not yet discovered. Every high school chemistry book had this. So Bob Lazar, the people saying, oh, he predicted element 115 and then they discovered it and this somehow vindicates Bob Lazar. No, it doesn't. It's not stable, like he said, and it doesn't have anti-gravity properties. Period. His science is 110% wrong until we discover a mysterious isotope of element 115 that has these properties. And even then, this is what we would call in science or physics or engineering unobtainium, a highly desirable material that is hypothetical, scientifically impossible, extremely rare, costly, or fictional, or in some cases has these properties in combination, which element 115 would describe just that. So there, his science is total crap. I'll get into it. I'm gonna get into it a little bit more and really nail this home and kill it for you, though, because I wanted to show you guys just how bad this is. Bob Lazar failed his lie detector tests. Jeremy Corbell gets on that show and he just lies and lies and lies and lies, and he's in the spotlight now. He's loving it up because he's selling a couple films to a couple really gullible newbies who are out there buying his film on iTunes and stuff, man. But this is going to be over real quick, and what he doesn't realize is he's casting a huge net, which is going to reel in a large number of people into this subject, and as they come in and start doing research in it, they're going to find channels like mine who've been, people who've been doing the research for 10 plus years and have really believed this guy for years and really investigated this thoroughly, and are now convinced that, no, this is not where it's at, and can show you all the inconsistencies and lies in this man's story that have come up in 30 years. So hopefully we can forward these people to this research and help them find them, speed them along beyond this stuff to some better information. But Fat Man and Little Boy is a movie that came out in 1989, right around the same time Bob Lazar's story. And in Fat Man and Little Boy, there's a scene in the movie that shows the Slaton Experiment. And this is pretty interesting stuff, because the Slaton Experiment is where I believe Bob Lazar got his whole element 115 business from. So he had he basically, Lazar, a lot of the elements of Lazar's story are the very same. He talks about the scientists who these scientists who were killed in this experiment, and he had to go out there, and that was what he was hired at S4 to go and do. Is he was hired to replace these scientists, supposedly. Now these scientists were working with a real experiment on something called the Demon Core. The Demon Core was I think it was like I forget how much it weighed, but it was a huge ball of plutonium. It was billions of dollars worth of plutonium, with a nickel casing, because plutonium corrodes really readily. It's a really difficult metallurgy. Wouldn't be able to machine it into triangles or do any of the weird metallurgy things with these higher heavy elements that Bob Lazar claims. This thing was so radioactive, man, it killed 2 scientists. One of them was Louis Slotin, who I mentioned and showed in that video. But this movie came out and showed this whole experiment in, this was in 1989, right around the same time Bob Lazar came out with his story. And it has the half shell, which looks exactly like Bob Lazar's the domed reactor core that Bob Lazar shows. And we're going to talk about the reactor core in a second, and why it's completely unfeasible. So this was an experiment with supercriticality. This thing's what's called a neutron deflector, and it blocks active neutrons. What's required for a nuclear chain reaction is something called is required. These high energy neutrons need to when the high energy neutrons penetrate these other nuclei, it basically breaks them down and then sends off more high energy neutrons, which in turn go and break into more nuclei and cause more chain reactions. But normally these neutrons can be absorbed or defeated enough where this chain reaction won't take place. And the way they get the chain reaction to go is they get, of course, what's called a critical mass, where they put enough of this material together and close enough together that it can become critical. And normally, these things go out, and with that neutron detector, it's a beryllium half shell that they're putting over this. And what that's doing is basically it's shielding the neutrons, which is fostering and allowing that reaction to take place. And this was the experiment they were doing, and supposedly where Bob got his idea for the core that goes over the top of this element 115 reactor. In fact, a lot of the element 115 reactor looks very similar to a lot of the stuff in this experiment and things. Same size, same, and this movie came out right around the same time. This was a well-known exhibit at the History Museum. He would have seen this, but it's very easy to take the piece of what he knew about nuclear science and all the stuff that he put together and come up with this story about the element 115. He never draws the Feynman diagrams. As a real physicist would in the demonstrations that he gave, he had a whiteboard behind him and he was giving a demonstration, and he doesn't he doesn't ever draw out the Feynman diagrams or explain the physics of what's really going on, and I don't think he can, and that's why it's complete bunk until we find a stable isotope element 115. Until he can explain and write out the actual math and the physics involved, then I would have no reason to believe it. So let's talk about some other real stuff. Well, this disinformation continues to pervade a lot of the internet and airwaves right now. It's going to die down real fast, and it's going to bring more people into this, and hopefully they can stumble across channels like this where we can introduce them to some real information. We're going to talk about some stuff tonight, man. So I want to introduce you talk a little bit more about myself for those who still don't know me or don't know some of the background. But I want to talk about I've been doing this for a while, and I've met a lot of really interesting people. One of the guys I met is a guy who used to work out at Area 51. Not Bob Lazar, but a guy named Ed Boucher. And you can find his stuff. I don't have it linked off the main site. I'm gonna make another page for Ed Boucher. But I want to talk about Ed Boucher. Ed Boucher was the first guy to talk about the TR3B flying triangle, which has, of course, been used to explain a lot of the triangular-shaped craft sightings that have gone on. I want to talk about all my research into this and stuff. Dan doesn't want to come on. Dan says that Dan called me up, said a lot of weird stuff's been going on in ufology, guys. So like, let me get into this, right? We've been talking, and me and Dan and Michael Schratt and a couple other friends of mine, we've been all like discussing. I've been trying to get a team together, an X-Files research team, and we're trying to post like get like the dream team together to really investigate every X-file, dig through it, and come up with real results, and get funding for it, and make a TV show or some kind of program around it, a reality TV program around it, where we really put the dream team together for the X-Files. And I think someone got wind of that in the government, and they don't want that to happen. Dan says that he was interrogated by several different agencies today, pulled aside. I'm curious as to why I have not been stopped or contacted at all in a similar way. Not sure what to make of it, but that's the reason he's saying that he doesn't want to come on. And he also said that he also sent me a couple pictures that we're going to show tonight. Hopefully we'll see. If my screen goes blank and this feed cuts out, we'll know why. But he sent me some pictures that Ed Boucher sent to him before he died of the TR3B, and I'm going to show him. I'm going to show you guys later tonight. We're going to show them in a little bit. I'm going to show these pictures. In fact, I should probably show them now before my screen can go blank. Let me find these. All right. All right. So this is obviously the triangle that was filmed by NASA that we determined was a piece of the nose cone and not a TR3B, filmed by NASA in that other photograph. And I'm sorry, these are really blurry. This is allegedly a photograph of it operating, and this is a photograph of it operating. So I don't know. This was Ed's paperwork saying that he was approved for deployment. DARPA, Edwards Air Force Base. He's got this was another document, but Ed was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. He worked on flight test equipment for a lot of the fighter jets that they flew out there, and he knew a lot of people that had information, even though Ed didn't have information himself. And I don't know what's the deal with the TR3B and the propulsion system, which I'm going to get into the science of in just a second. But Ed did talk about two things that really blew my mind and are of great interest, and would have definitely been the type of things that they were researching out at Area 51 during the 80s. Not what Bob Lazar claims, this Element 115 stuff. which wasn't discovered until like 2003 and is not stable and doesn't have any of the properties he claimed. Does not vindicate him for predicting it at all. Quasicrystals and metamaterials. There's some interesting photonic properties of these types of crystals and what they could be used to build. Basically, from some of the research that I've done into like UFO crash sites and some of the materials that were recovered and the witness descriptions of these materials, that's really what I have focused on. They all describe a bakelite material. Sometimes it's super lightweight, and it always has like these weird properties. And so, in fact, someone said that they had a piece of this stuff, and if you turned it at a certain angle, it would go invisible. It would be completely see-through. And then that type of material and what they're describing can only be like scientifically explained with these types of materials, quasicrystals and metamaterials. And I have my own questions on whether, there is the theory that was around at the time, and it was ripe for these things to have been discovered naturally. Same with all these technologies like that were alleged that we got this stuff reverse engineered from aliens. There's also a possibility that we just discovered this stuff ourselves, and it's so weird and crazy and far out that it just gets caught up with this. But nobody talks about the quasicrystals and the metamaterials and these photonic crystals and these amazing types of materials. They all talk about element 115. That's like the hot news. Everybody's sitting there, talking about Bob Lazar and element 115. Nobody's talking about the TR3B anymore. Nobody's talking about quasicrystals and metamaterials. So let's talk about the TR3B though, because Ed's science on the TR3B, as you recall, you've watched my videos that I've done on this and the updates, and then as I learned more and more, there's some problems with this. The RPMs would have ripped apart any containment vessel at that speed. I don't care what it was made out of. The pressure, ridiculously high pressures, and the supercooling. You supercool mercury to that temperature and pressurize it, it's going to be frozen solid. You'd have to increase the temperature and decrease the pressure to make it, a plasma. You wouldn't make it plasma by supercooling it and freezing it. So that get me to the idea that, well, maybe they're confining the plasma. And in order to confine the plasma, you need pretty serious magnets. And pretty serious magnets require supercooling to keep them cool. The best, super efficient. If you supercool magnets and get them superconducting, they work a lot better and a lot cooler. So that might explain the supercooling. But still, it's a shot in the dark, and I've gotten all kinds of people. I've even been involved with groups trying to research what the mercury is, how it works, how this theory came about, and maybe it did come from the Nazi bell, right? That's the whole idea, is that the Vimanas, and it goes back to ancient India with the Vimanas and the Nazi bell. What I look for is, who are the scientists involved in that Nazi Bell project? What kinds of things were they studying theoretically prior to being recruited into such a program? What kind of papers were they writing prior to that? And I've kind of looked into a little bit of that with some of the theories revolving around the idea that basically our whole modern science system has been poisoned. And some of it's really weird theories, that it's all Jewish science, that Einstein and Jewish science, and that they've been promoting and pushing this whole wrong way of looking at quantum mechanics, when really, the standard way of looking at things with Schrodinger wave equation and Brockhat notation and that type of way of looking at it was an inferior approach to, say, Heisenberg, the German approach to quantum mechanics with matrix mechanics, which again was the reason I was so interested in that Phoenix theory and pursued that and as a possible theoretical backdoor to how the anti-gravity could work. been searching for it quite a while. We're gonna continue to search for it. But I'm going to share the information that I have, and there are groups out there doing experiments right now with mercury plasmas. The one community that knows probably the most about mercury plasmas, doping agents, and their effects on the plasmas would probably be the electric light industry, who've been making a lot of mercury plasma lamps, light bulbs. So, but light bulbs aren't the same as anti-gravity. It would really be interesting to get some of their data and some information together and put a research team to, because really you don't want to be doing experiments with mercury at home in your garage, although I know people out there have. I feel bad for them. But you really should, this really requires more of a lab. And really, what are you doing? You're just like going to do these experiments with mercury and energizing it and spinning plasmas and trying different things until and measuring the effects. Like, it's like shooting in the dark. It's like rubbing a genie. Rubbing a lamp and hoping the genie will pop out. It's not really the conventional way that we do science or physics. Where we come up with a theory and an idea and then work from there. But then again, there's no real theory of gravity and no real understanding for how gravity works to work from. So how do we get there from there? So it's interesting. It's an interesting avenue, but I feel like if you were to pursue that type of avenue, it would take an immense amount of time, effort, and research without any real solid direction. And there's also a high degree of danger working with the mercury. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like an interesting avenue, and I hope more comes out of it. I hope people, some kind of breakthrough can happen. Look for the TR3B. We've tried to find the TR3B. Tried to find everything we could about the TR3B. No records of it. Is it a real plane? Does it even exist? Where did it go? Where did it come from? Very interesting. But quasi-crystals and metamaterials, Ed Boucher, as far as I know, was one of the first people out there talking about these things, and that was way back in 1998. There were some articles that I found and some earlier references to the stuff, but he could have borrowed some of the information from. But how he put it together, he had to have had some know-how or knew somebody or talked to somebody in the know, because Ed didn't really have the scientific knowledge and background and ability to put that kind of information together on his own. Someone told him, and I believe someone connected with Area 51 and the research that's going on out there. So yeah, this is... I know people have seen the TR3B too, man. In fact, there's one right outside my fucking house right now. Just kidding. Anyways, yeah. So again, what sorting out the wheat from the chaff? It's a very difficult task for a pure scientist. You can do all the research you want, but into other stuff. But when it comes down to it, all I'm really interested in is whether the science works. So we were talking about getting a team together, a dream team, and we're going to do these experiments with the Hutchison effect and on Judy Wood and scalar interferometry, that whole Tom Bearden scalar technology concept. And do a bunch of experiments. Try a reproduction, a small-scale reproduction of the Philadelphia experiment. Try some of these experiments and actually put them together and do some of the research. And it's interesting. There's a company down in Texas. I think it's Milford, Texas, and they're got a bunch of Tesla towers. They're building Wardenclyffe towers. They got the Wardenclyffe tower out there, and they're doing a bunch of these interesting experiments out there with wireless power and wireless transport. Visit Technologies. This is the guys. They built this. They got a giant crane. They built a whole huge Wardenclyffe tower apparatus out there, man. They're doing experiments with Tesla tech, and these guys would be interesting to talk to and interview and see what the heck they know and what kind of research they're doing. Seems like they're really just about power distribution, but I'd be curious if that wasn't a front for other kinds of research going on behind the scenes, as you'd imagine would be the case with anyone interested enough in these subjects to build a Wardenclyffe tower. So, yeah, let's see. So another experiment I wanted to really do is nail down is electrogravitics, the Biefeld-Brown effect. Is it gravity coupling or is it ion wind effect? Really, just get a big vacuum test. I want to do the vacuum test, observe it, and try a couple things to make sure we isolate all other sources and see if it really works or doesn't. And it's really like that will be the determination if it's ion wind or if it's a really electrogravitic coupling. And that would be an easy enough one to do. But then again, there's hundreds of UFO cases out there that we could really dig into and really try to oust this black triangle, though, man. The TR3B. I think I don't know. Dan and a lot of these other guys seem to think it's very real. I'm still skeptical. I have my doubts, and I want to do more investigation into it to try to find the actual where the heck if this thing was made. But really, I just want to know how it flies. I don't really care what it's made or where they're flying, or if it explains these UFO sightings. I want to know how that thing works, man. So, yeah, so I did a lot of research into these types of things along the way, trying to find better and better technologies. And eventually I stumbled across, Ken Griggs and really started selling me more on the warp drive stuff, And warp drive technology is very real. How it's achieved, we don't really quite know yet. But there are experiments going on, and I want to share those with you guys. Where's the experiment? So here it is. This experiment, very interesting. I wanted to talk to some of these guys, and I've actually been in contact with some of these professors about this work. They're basically using muons, antimatter, a form of antimatter that is really safer than most other like anti-electrons or anti-protons, which would annihilate with pretty much everything what you and me are made of. We're made of protons and electrons and neutrons. So if we come across anti-protons or anti-neutrons or anti-electrons, they're going to annihilate us and be very dangerous. Whereas muons only annihilate with anti-muons. So if we got a bunch of anti-muons, antimatter muons hanging around, they're only going to annihilate and do stuff to muons. They're not going to really bother with the stuff you're made out of. So if you could find a way to build up tons of these muons and get a charge going full of muons, you might be able to create a Dirac hole surface or a warp drive. You might be able to create a warp drive with that. And I'm pretty sure that this is the breakthrough that they've done at Lockheed Martin. I'm pretty sure that this is what Ben Rich was talking about when he spoke of the Skunk Works having the ability to bring E.T. home and send him back again. I don't think that it was element 115. I don't think it was electrogravitics. I don't think it was these mercury plasma centrifuge engines. I'm convinced that it was particle physics, muons, and experiments with this. Well, I'm not convinced yet. I wouldn't say I'm convinced. I'm saying this is my latest avenue, and I want everyone to check it out and investigate this as well. we're going to be learning all kinds of stuff in the next year or two about all this type of technology, and talking to all kinds of people. We're going to really dig through this and get to the base of it. And how awesome would that be to get a dream team together? Like if we had funding in a lab to do experiments, and then go out and interview people, do research on cases, and then come back and do experiments. Like, how fucking awesome of a show would that be? How unbelievably amazing and beneficial to everybody out there would that be? Because really, like, you can argue this back and forth, or you can say this or say that, but if we get out and do experiments and, like, this is some real science, it's like you can't argue with that. If we go out there and this stuff works and it is contrary to what they're saying, and we show it and like show how to do it and do the experiments, I think it would be very powerful, very interesting, and show how to set all this stuff up. Man, I would totally set these up and do these experiments if I had the ability. So I don't know. We've been talking. A couple people have contacted me, very interested in getting something together. They're serious. People want the truth, man. We're done with this freaking the lies. You know, we got all this stuff that's flooding the internet talking about nonsense, and it's crazy because the nonsense stuff is so juvenile and so elementary. Whereas you start talking about real classified science and technology and stuff, this stuff's really like difficult, not so easy to understand for the layman. And I can tell why people get so like turned off and just bored. They're like, oh, what is this stuff? Boring. Let me go watch some friggin' flashy and super entertaining conspiracy video instead. Like, that really blows my mind. Rather than diving into like some of this stuff where you start getting into like the math and the real physics of it, and it's mind bending. It's not easy. It's not intuitive. It doesn't like follow like your normal train of thought and your normal patterns. So I can see why people they freak out when they come in contact with this stuff. But anyways, Mercury, dangerous stuff, man. Do some experiments with it. Please post your information and share. Even if you cause a disaster or something wrong happens, share so you can teach other people about it. And I don't know, it's crazy. But I'm gonna have to share some of these links, man. Lots of cool stuff on the history of EG&G, how they came up with the whole Area 51, the whole base at Groom Lake, and so I don't know what's going on with Dan. I'd like Dan to come on and talk to us and kind of explain what's going on, but he's freaking out right now. He's been on this Bob Lazar thing, just up 4 in the morning, people calling him, sharing information, and tell you what, Bob's put himself out in the spotlight, and a lot of stuff's coming down the pipe on Bob. There's a big team out there investigating him and pulling out every bit of his past, and his day's coming, and he's gonna get laid bare. This is the biggest thing. Jeremy Corbell can't top this, and in a year he's gonna be fade back into obscurity and be a no one again. Which is really funny because some of the interactions I had with him and the way he talked to me, it's pretty absurd. That guy is not a researcher. He's a shameless opportunist, and he's just in it for the money. He knows he's lying. You can tell he knows he's lying, and he's doing it for the money. He doesn't care. He's just doing it to try to cash out on it and try to like. I'm going to be do the biggest story. And of course, Bob Lazar doesn't give real interviews. You saw that Larry King interview that he did, man. Like, is the government literally all the questions, the entire thing is scripted. It's written on a script and given them beforehand so they can just rehash the same 30-year-old story over again. And there's no real detail. It doesn't stay off the script. It just stays within this one little narrow window realm that you're just looking at, Lazar from, and you can't look at anything else or see any of the bigger picture. And that's the only interviews he'll give. He'll never get on there with a serious researcher, never get on there for a debate, never, you know, have a discussion with a real physicist about propulsion technologies. It'll never happen because he knows he'd be exposed and he wouldn't be able to keep the lie going. He stopped giving interviews after Rachel, Nevada, where he was asked those questions about his professors, where he completely, you know, fumbled up, and I showed that in the video. So
Watching
it's good stuff, man. I'm gonna take some questions now from people. That anything I didn't cover, you guys want me to cover or talk about, man? Let's see, Bigfoot research. Let's talk about Bigfoot, man. Well, holy crap. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say about Bob Lazar, and I'm getting some calls right now that I want to go answer because I'm going to go back to doing research and putting a real video together. But I just wanted to do a live stream and share that information. People, find your chemistry books from the 70s or 80s and post up, take a picture of the periodic table and post it. I'm going to put a video together on element 115, which will completely just destroy that whole story. And hopefully we can get, you know, more views than 3,000 on this video for some actual truth about, you know, metamaterials and visibility cloaking technologies and the types of propulsion systems that are really being researched and experimented with. That's all I have to say, you know. I want to do, well, not all I have to say. We have to do another thing on Ed Boucher and really like rehash that story, because Ed Boucher, he did work at Area 51, man. He worked at Nellis, and he worked out at Groom. Ed was a drunk. He did cause a lot of problems and did stir up shit on the forum. Did get drunk and say things that were bad. And but that video that I posted with him saying that he was a lying motherfucker. I just want to say that. Here's Dan calling me now, man. Hey, Dan, I'm on air, man.
Okay. Call me on my computer. Hang on.
I know, I'm trying to get them on, man. I'm trying to get some people. Wait one moment. We're going to get them on. We're going to have a party here tonight. And we're going to go off on some topics. Let me get on Hangouts. Oh. Man, what you guys don't know, like you do this every day for 10 years, man. And also, I want to know, is my channel blacklisted, people? Can you guys tell me? Like, I went on my neighbor's computer, right? Get this. Tell me why. Oh, also, I wanted to bring this up too. The copyright strikes. I'm blacklisted, and I think part of the reason is these entertainment companies, Infamous Entertainment and Orchard Entertainment. These fucking cocksuckers filed copyright strikes against my video that debunks their bullshit. It's like they don't want the truth getting out so they can sell more copies of their fake iTunes crap, because it probably will affect it. It's probably affecting the sales of their video because people are like realizing that it's all bullshit and they're not going to pay $20 for that crap. So I really think that there's something going on. Maybe it's them causing it. They're paying off YouTube or something's going on. But I went on YouTube and you know, I searched for my videos. Right, you search Bob Lazar debunked, and I can find it's all Larry King, coast to coast. Larry King, UFO TV, and here's my video. I can find it. It's like 10th down on the list. I went upstairs and did the same search on my neighbor's computer. Man, I couldn't even find my video. I couldn't even find any of my videos under the same search tags. And I went way down in the searches and started looking, and it's literally gone. Like, if that's not blacklisted, like censorship, like some proof that like something bigger is going on with this, like I don't know what is, dude. Like, I don't know. I want other people to confirm this and try the experiment themselves, but I'm pretty sure I'm being censored, and there's something weird going on with that. But I'm trying to get so Tau Zero Foundation, pretty cool organization. These guys, I wanted to get in touch with them, talk about some of their ideas for interstellar flight and propulsion, and they're really trying to push the envelope with some of this stuff. And they're on, I don't know, they got their own ideas and stuff, man, but again, I want to get research going. I want to get a dream team together to really dig into the X-Files and do some solid research into these cases for people. Where's the live chat? Did I close that out? What the hell is it? Anyways, I don't know what's going on with my feed. God damn it. Yeah, dude, they've been pulling my videos down and doing some stuff, man. Okay, I gotta send Dan the invite. Man, where the heck is that Hangouts? Alright, you ready for this? I'm gonna post it right now. Sorry for this. I got fucking 20 fucking windows open, man. Alright, here's the link. Mute your mic if you come on. Dude.
You there?
Yes, I am. Let me see if we can bring you on here. Can you say something?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, you should be coming through.
That's weird. I can't hear you on my headphones, but I can on my speakers. Hang on a minute. Let me go to settings. Hang on. Just bear with me. Keep talking. I'll figure this out in a second. I got my
interesting stuff that's going on, though, man. I don't quite know what to make of all of it.
We were shut down. What's going on? Are you there?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's like I got the video that I put together, all those inconsistencies and stuff. I didn't use any of my own commentary, which I probably should have, because I think that's the reason they filed the copyright strikes, is because I didn't have enough of my own commentary. But the whole point of that is I wanted to just use Bob Lazar, John Lear, Gene Huff, all the original sources to debunk the whole story. The original story, to debunk the story. I wanted to show people the absurdity just from the original sources without any commentary at all, which was the point of that. So, but I think what should be in order is a more pre-scripted, narrated video, start to finish, just going over everything in super fine detail. And I've already started working on some of that, and I've come up with an outline already for that. But I'm still doing research and putting more stuff together for that because I want to build a case that's like absolutely solid. You know what I'm saying, Dan?
Yeah.
But Dan, go ahead and let me. Why don't you fill us in on what's going on with you, dude?
Well, oh boy. It's been a rough day. Yesterday, a very good friend of ours that was going to do a show with us was contacted by ATIP, by a guy that was investigating flying triangles. And he was trying to convince this guy that basically the message was, there's nowhere in the budget for the DOD, and this is a guy that's working for ATIP right now. Basically, there's nowhere in the DOD that there was a flying triangle created, and basically it's alien, and that's the story you're going to stick to or you're not going to talk. So today, someone sent me a link showing that I was on NASA's Unexplained Files, which I'd never seen before in my life. It's on IMDb or whatever. And as you remember, when I went and spoke to NASA's Unexplained Files, it was 5 hours at the Communications Center at Johns Hopkins University. And 3.5 hours of that conversation was all about the flying triangle. And what was so weird was these guys all had English accents. And towards the very end of the conversation, I brought my nephew with me. These guys claimed that they had just came from New York, had never been to Baltimore before. And we were talking, and they had told me how they wanted to go to Fells Point because the one guy said this, the last time they were there, they had a great time. And I looked over at my nephew and said to this, and these guys were all speaking with British accents. I looked over at him and said, isn't that weird? I said, they just told us they've never been to Baltimore before. They just came here to New York after interviewing, I think it was Michio Kaku. And I was like, wow, what an incredible thing. I thought I'm after Michio Kaku. And Jeremy, you remember they wanted to know about that picture of that triangle. Well, the stuff they put me on NASA's Unexplained Files for, I got to disclose about Gordon Cooper. I was on 3 or 4 episodes of season 2, which became season 1, I believe. And they talked to me about the triangle for at least 3 hours. They didn't give a shit about anything else. It was the triangle this, the triangle that. The first or second episode, they show Edgar Fouché for the first 5 minutes or so, and he says, yeah, there's been thousands of sightings of flying triangles over the past 10 years. And you never see Ed again. And I believe, oh, and by the way, that picture right there that you're showing, that's from Denise Merter. That was a case in Bucks County where she was seeing a massive flying triangle over her home, and she would hear like the audio sound for it. And when MUFON showed that in their TV, they didn't show that portion of the picture. You can look her up. Her last name is Murtor. This is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. They never showed that picture, and it is the same thickness and the same size as Ed's TR3B. And I just wanted to, I sent you that picture because that's an absolute case where she took photos of the damn thing and they suppressed it on fucking TV. Excuse my language. This shit has gotten to a point where I've had enough of it. Now, when it comes to Ed, okay, that picture right there, that was, that's a very interesting photograph. That picture was sent to me a long time ago, and I've seen that picture show up in a video from a guy that does bullshit videos. And my computers have been hacked many times over and over again. As you know, I've had Ed's files, I'll just say. I shouldn't say that. I remember you mailed me Ed's, what were they called? Slideshow, Jeremy. The Kodak slideshow. Remember that? Jeremy?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, that's not in my home anymore. It's gone. And I had it in a very specific place. I ripped the whole house apart. It's gone. That disappeared. That's from his 1998 disclosure video. And there was shit on there that was never shown on the slides, which some of the pictures I had blew a couple people away. And I'm just going to say this, you know, when a number of cases right now where people have seen massive black triangles. I have people contact.
Hey, I gotta step out for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Go ahead. I'll keep talking.
Hello?
I've had people contact me about massive black triangles. I'm not going to mention any names right now because these people, I don't know if they want to go public or not, but there's one guy that I actually contacted him because I saw a YouTube video, and him and I become friends. He lives in Michigan, and it was a mass sighting at a freaking car plant, and they saw a triangle, and it was massive, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning. It was right over the highway, and there's at least 20 people at this plant, and I said, draw me a picture of it, and it looks virtually identical to what Ed's CAD drawings were from the 80s. And that'd be a 1994 case. It can be looked up. If you search flying triangle UFOs on YouTube, you may find the guy 1994. You may find the case. But I'm here to tell you that there is a growing, there's a consensus among intelligence agencies trying to tell people that are talking about these things to say that they're alien. And that's about as far as I'd like to go on it, because a friend of mine was contacted a day ago or 2 days ago from ATIP, and then I was contacted today. He had told my friend, hey, I want to talk to Dan. And they didn't just contact me. The people I spoke to met me somewhere, and I didn't ask them to meet me. So it was very bizarre, very uncomfortable. And basically the message is, you're mistaken. These are alien vehicles. They're not ours. So I'm not really sure why they would do that unless, as before, as confirmed, this is not the first time I've been accosted or approached. It's very, oh boy, it's scary, man. When you are, I'm a big dude, man. I'm 6'4", like 280. When you have a group of 7 or 8 people come after you and want to talk to you and pull you in private and start talking to you, it's not the most comfortable thing you're ever going to deal with. I had a panic attack, and I called Jeremy up. I told him, I said, man, I don't want to even fucking be involved in this shit no more. I said, this happened before in 2011, but it's kind of weird that me, him, and Michael Schratt were arranging to do a show and start a live show here recently. And Michael was accosted himself first. And I knew damn well, as soon as he told me that, I thought, boy, I'm next. And it happened. It happened today. So.
Well, I don't know. I just feel like that somebody really, somebody doesn't want, somebody doesn't want this stuff coming out. There's a reason why I'm blacklisted on the back of YouTube.
Well, yeah, I told you all about that. I said, well, I was at my girlfriend's house. It was like, we searched his name. There's no sign-in account. And Jeremy, his YouTube video about Bob Lazar doesn't come up. The Element 115 video did. But what's really weird about everything is they want to push one story, it seems to me right now. There's 2 stories out there that they're pushing, Corey Good and Bob Lazar. So I'm not saying Bob's a liar about everything, but the thing about Bob is he's not who if he's lying about his schooling. He lied about it to Larry King yesterday, and that dot in the sky is nothing more than a light over a classified Air Force base. Imagine that. You have a light over an Air Force base, and Gene Huff comes up. You can hear him grab the camera, push it to the side, and then it bounces back over. And the whole reason I became a skeptic about Bob Lazar was because John Lear in 2009, I had the letter to prove it, and the DVDs he sent me of that original video. He had never sent to anybody before, and I'm not an idiot. I watch it, And you can hear Gene Huff walk up, grab the camera, because an 80s microphone's very sensitive, tilt the fucking camera to the side. It comes back and he goes, wow, did you see that? Bob Lazar says no. John Lear says no. Bob's ex-wife, Tracy Merck, says no. And how could they miss that if they're all three looking at the same object? It's so blatant, it's not even funny. Now, why did they have to do that? Because that Atlas guy had to move, and they fucked up. And that's when I realized we're being taken. And that was all the way back in 2009 when I used to talk to John Lear and used to post on Open Mind Forum. I'm just saying, Bob Lazar is the focus of subject right now. And Corey Good and all these other people, they want you to watch all this bullshit so you keep your mind off the real picture. That's my opinion. And anyone...
And same with the David Wilcox and like the guy who said the world was going to end in 2012 and a bunch of other stuff. He'll jump on any new bandwagon.
He's the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Give me a break.
Yeah, another wacko. They're both wackos.
The whole thing is, man, is that
these guys don't have evidence. The thing is that these guys get thousands of views, and then you have channels like Secure Team 10 that put out fake after fake after fake. And these are the top watched channels, dude. And you have to wonder why, dude. Like, how do these people get the boost? How does it? Where does the boost come from?
1.3 million
There's a
views.
hidden friggin'
Several
hand.
days on a fake Chinese video that's on the backside of the moon, and he's been getting pushes. The guy is far from intelligent. He's
6 days ago, 1.5 million views for that China video.
Yep. And he's lied. He impersonated a scientist from NASA, and people just love this shit. Or his numbers inflated, because as I told you, Jeremy, would you rather have $1 million or $900? If I'm going to look at videos, I search the one that has 1 million views before I search one that has 900. That's just the way it goes, and that's the order they come in also. And as I told you before, you're blacklisted. There's many times when you're like, I got a video up and I go to look for it and I'm not on my account.
Well, this is the most viewers we've had in a while, man. I got 129 people watching right now. So this is
my whole thing is I'm so sick of Bob Lazar. You know, people, do your own research and don't be insulted, man. I mean, our intelligence was all insulted. If you believe that story scientifically, then you need to go to school, because there's nothing even close about that story. It makes any sense. The antimatter reactor that Bob talks about, the element 115 disperses into 116 after it's combined with a gaseous target, which would be hydrogen, and then he's producing antihydrogen, if you want to be exact.
From the element 115. This is the thing that gets me, right? Is he shows...
Hold on a minute. They're producing what John Lear and Bob Lazar described as 10 nuclear hydrogen bombs, and that thing, it's 3 inches tall, and it contains it, yet Bob says at the Nevada test site, he replaced a couple of guys that cut into the same reactor with a saw, and it exploded. Well, hold on a minute here. How would you cut into something that can contain a nuclear reaction that's the same as 1 hydrogen bomb, much less 10? Does anybody have any idea of what a hydrogen bomb is capable of? That's what Edward Teller was involved in. Oppenheimer, all these guys, man. I mean, it's ridiculous to believe that a nuclear fusion, a nuclear annihilation reaction takes place in this little tuned tube, and it's contained and converted into energy. How? Bullshit. Where did the protons come from?
He doesn't show any of the Feynman diagrams of the physics of it involved.
He
said he could.
Why are aliens using a particle accelerator? Why?
Well,
why?
Again,
I mean,
why?
ridiculous.
If it's a particle accelerator, why does it have a slight 22-degree bend on it? Like, you know, you see this bend.
I know, and
that's
can't
ridiculous. You can't bend. Right. If this is a high proton traveling at high velocity, you need massive magnetic field to bend that. Like, there's no magnet wrapped around there.
I asked Bob this question in an email, and remember, people, a lot of people don't understand how this went down. Bob claims they took the reactor out of the craft and took it into the office, and him and Barry, after Bob took the element 115, dumps it into the chamber, and he claims there's no switches, no wires. It works as magic. And he says as soon as he sticks the 115 in there, there's an instant anti-gravitational force that's localized that keeps him from putting his hands within 2 or 3 feet. And I can show you on the IUFOC video, within 2 or 3 feet of this half sphere. First of all, how did he get the half sphere on? Because as soon as he sticks the 115 in, the protons are bombarded into the 115, so there'd be no way to get the cap on, no way to get the sphere on. But let's say there was a way to put the sphere on. If he puts his hand within 2 or 3 feet of it, and he said it's the same as two opposing parts of the magnet, how on earth, with no switches, no wires, did they ever turn off the reactor? I asked Bob this in an email. He said, I've never, ever been asked that before. And he says, I guess Barry turned the emitter somehow. The emitter is inside the fucking reactor. So Bob's lying. His science is shit. I'm sorry that some of you people believe this, but scientifically, this is a joke.
Yeah,
Dr.
it
Eric
all boils down
Davis.
to science. And if you don't have good science that holds together after 30 years, then you have shit. And
here's the whole thing too, Jeremy.
you know what's retarded is these people believe it. These people support it. They think that the discovery, that when they discovered element 115 in 2003, that it vindicated Bob and proved him right. That's what people believe.
Okay.
It's fucking ridiculous, dude.
In the universe, the way the universe has been dispersed, and we're being constantly hit by asteroids and what have you, meteors, we would see traces of element 115. There is no doubt about it. This bullshit about a bigger sun would create it. Bullshit. We would see it. But here's the whole thing. This story, if you scientifically talk to someone that knows what they're talking about, find me one physicist, just one, that says this story makes any sense. It doesn't. Look at Dr. Eric Davis. He did work for Robert
a dozen
Bigelow.
or so. I've written to probably a dozen or so scientists, nuclear physicists, and then nuclear engineering labs and everything, particle physicists, particle accelerators. I've written to several of them asking about this one element 115 and bubble sort. None of them respond to me.
Guys, please, y'all, I know. Guys, yes, because it's a waste of their time. Guys, all I'm asking is this. I'm not asking you to weaponize your curiosity, because your curiosity, your weaponization of curiosity, that's Corbell's statement. No, look at the facts and look at the science and learn it. I believed the story a long time ago. And I was told by John Lear and other people that were members of John Lear's crew, don't look at A, B, and C. Don't ever look at this. Don't ever look at this. And it was the Glenn Campbell information, the Tom Hood timeline, all this other shit. And then that video was sent to me, and I'm like, why are these guys telling me not to look at this? And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, how fucking, I'm stupid.
Yeah,
I must be an idiot.
Let's just go and do the whole Lazar timeline. Fuck it.
Let's do it. Let's bang it out. Let's bang it out. Let's do it. I'm in the mood. Let's do it.
So, 1959, January 26, 1959. That's when Bob Lazar was born in Coral Gables, Florida.
Yep. He used to claim he was adopted, and he wasn't.
Right, that's his real birth.
Now he claims his sister was adopted. Okay.
So they got the birth records. His social security number was issued in New York State.
Now remember, Bob Lazar and George Knapp used to say that, okay, we called Bob's hospital, and they didn't have any records of him being born. Anybody that calls a Florida hospital and asks them for their birth records because of privacy acts and shit like that, back in 1960-something, somewhere around there, or 50-something, they send all birth records to the state, the Department of Welfare. Because of identity theft and who knows what all else, you can't call the hospital up and say, hey, I want to come up there and send a guy down into the file cabinet and get a copy of my birth certificate. It's held by the state. It's the same in the state where I live at. I had hell to go through to get a copy of my birth certificate. So when they say they called the hospital and there was no record of him, that's bullshit. They're not telling the truth. They're telling some type of lie.
Yeah, they're telling one side of the story to try to like frame this whole thing and put it.
That's exactly right. So
he graduates from high school at West Tresper Clark High His
August of
rank was
1976,
which
which is
means
2
he went to
months too
summer
late.
school. He went to summer school.
He
He
failed a
graduated
class.
261 out of 369, the bottom third of his class. He would have
Yep.
never gotten to Caltech or MIT.
Nope.
I've never seen his SAT scores posted anywhere, or his GREs. Where's his graduate record exams?
There is none.
The graduate requisite exams, yeah.
And remember, Corbell and all them say that does not matter. That doesn't matter that he doesn't have the degrees. They admit to it at this point. Doesn't matter he doesn't have degrees from Caltech and MIT. Well, hold on a minute. Okay. I know for a fact that people at Los Alamos are bitching right now that when he was on the cover of Los Alamos newspaper where he said he was a physicist, or people worked there at the time, like, Bob's not a physicist, Bob's a technician. Bob's basically just a standard employee around here. He had the contract to rebuild the Alpha probes, which him and John Lear admits readily on video, we were doing 300 every 6 weeks. 300 every 6 weeks. What they did was they gave him the contract and let him take it home because it made more sense financially to have him at home rebuilding them in Las Vegas, and him and John Lear were doing them, and they said they were making money in '86. He was employed through Kirk Meyer, not through the lab, which if anybody ever worked in a technical capacity, this happens. I've been through it. You don't necessarily, it's like being employed through a temp agency and working for BAE, okay? That's no difference at all. You're not a direct employee of that company. You're a subcontractor.
Well, the thing that's funny is he claimed he was a senior staff physicist. So basically, he claimed he was Robert Oppenheimer on this UFO project.
And here's another thing, people. He only, to his own transcripts and records, only worked at S4 for 6 days. The first 2 days were reading briefings. The second 2 days, he was in the lab. The last 2 days, remember, per his testimony, he can't remember anything but getting on and off the Janet plane because he was given something that smelled like pine salts, and he couldn't remember anything. So he had 2 days that he remembered in the damn lab. You mean to tell me of them 2 days he discovered element 115, took this reactor out, put it in the office, and him and Barry threw golf balls at it. The anti-gravity shot the golf ball up into the tiled ceiling. This story is so ridiculous. Listen to me, everybody. It's an insult to your intelligence to believe it the way it's sold. It's disinformation.
Real information has not come across like this easy. This is entertainment, it's infotainment, and it's disinfotainment.
It's moneytainment, dude. It's moneytainment. At this point,
so he's got the jet car. He's running this jet processing company. It's a photo processing company where he drives around in his jet car delivering his photo processing.
That car was a piece of junk. You had to start the engine to the car as a Honda and get it up to. I know this from people that know Bob very well because there's a concerning amount of people that are turning on him. So he's full of shit. You had to get the car up to 30 miles an hour before you could turn the jet on before it would take off. So it didn't have that much thrust. But I will tell you this right now. I've been going to drag since the early 1980s. And every redneck that's able to buy a jet motor has been able to produce a jet dragster. This is nothing phenomenal. They had jet dragsters many years ago. Guys were building jet monster trucks. I mean, there's nothing fascinating about this. A jet motor is one of the easiest things to operate. It's fuel and oxygen mixed together, and boom, you have thrust. It's not like a V8 motor is far more harder to work on and tear apart and machine everything perfectly and get your tolerances right. To say that because he had a fucking jet dragster with his qualifications is the same as saying a nurse that works for the hospital couldn't perform open heart surgery because she sat in the operating room 1 or 2 times. Bullshit. I'm calling it out right now. Bob's story is bullshit. I don't care what anybody thinks. It's an insult to your intelligence. They presented a biased side of the story and never presented the other half of the story.
So didn't Bob live next door to, he actually lived next door to one of these inventors of one of these jet engines, which is how he got introduced to this stuff. It's not like he was
growing up again when he moved to Los Angeles, the guy that invented that one engine, and he's on that bicycle, and he's He's only like 18 or something like that. It was after he got out of high school. His parents moved to LA, and apparently his dad had money. And that jet engine, yeah, I mean, it's on that one bike, and now he has another bike that he built a few years ago. The whole thing is, listen, man, there are guys that I know and are friends of mine on Facebook that work for NASA, the NSA, different government agencies that are way up there and are actual real geniuses and real scientists. And these guys are absolutely insulted by the story, but it's degradation for them to speak about it because it's so ridiculous and preposterous. They don't want to waste their time on it. I mean, it's absurd. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there has been
It's
a
absurd that
lot.
we're still talking about it 30 years later, and that would, like, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, you got to beat a dead horse to death, and yeah, it's still hot news, and still we have so much information that we could share with people that we still haven't shared with people, and there's more stuff that we're putting together.
Every 5 years or so, it's brought back up again. You got to ask yourself why. You got Dan Burrish, Charles Hall.
But why has the government never come out with like an official like debunk or a statement or anything? They haven't even acknowledged it.
Well, maybe because they didn't have to, because Jerry Freeman went down there, and the amount of radiation that I have shown you that's at Papoose Dry Lake is 30, 30 rads or something per square meter, and Area 51 is 0.5. And when you multiply it out, it's 60 times the amount of radiation. It's plutonium that should be able to get in the system. And it's not absorption through the skin. Literally, if you held a piece of paper up in front of your skin, the plutonium wouldn't hurt you. It's when you inhale it and it gets into your lungs. And Jerry Freeman spent 2 days and 2 nights sleeping.
Dan?
And it was caused by exposure to plutonium. This is an absolute fact. He died, and there's a whole roll of film from Papoose Lake. There's 2 copies. I know one person has 1 copy. I've seen several photos online, but the main one is he's standing right in front of where the S4 facility should be, and there's nothing there. And people say, well, you know, maybe he photoshopped it. No, these pictures were taken in the mid-90s with a camera that he set up, and George Knapp tells all about it. The reason why George Knapp told all about it was I got into an argument with George Knapp in 2014 on John Lear's Facebook page and tore him a new one. He couldn't deal with me. And I brought up about Jerry Freeman, and that's why he says in that video, Jeremy, and you can pull it up, he's pissed. He's like, pull up the Jerry Freeman stuff, he calls it. The Jerry Freeman stuff.
Yeah. No, I know he does.
And we've gone over
the Jerry Freeman stuff, though. It's like, and well, I want to know. It's kind of like beating a dead horse to death. Obviously, there's.
Well, no, hold on a minute here. To make Papoose Dry Lake workable, the government, I think it was Project 557 or 757. You can look it up at the Thomas Energy Range.
That link you sent me right here. I'm gonna post the link to that right in the.
They would have had to have dug up 1 foot of the whole Papoose Dry Lake bed, which would have cost $200 million back in the 90s. And there was no reason to do it because they can use Groom Lake. It's just, the whole story is just so insane. If you look at Papoose Lake and you actually believe there's a site there and that you can't see it, well, that's on you. You know?
Well, Bob describes that when they pulled up, they saw a fence. They went through a chain link fence, and there was a parking lot and a guard shack.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And none of that's in any of the satellite photos. And he obviously wasn't brought to Papoose. He obviously wasn't.
The satellite, Jeremy, show them the link. The satellite photos start from 19.
Oh yeah, that's on Tom LaHood's website, right?
No, it's Pros and Cons of Bob Lazar or something like that. I have it on my computer. I'd have to look it up. I sent you the link 100 times, and it shows. I showed these other guys that they're like, "Oh my God, I never knew these pictures existed." I'm like, "Man, dude, these pictures. If you just go to Google."
Yeah. This is all of it right here. I'm going to post this right now so people have that. Here's links to all the Papoose Lake stuff. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on Papoose Lake. It's kind of
sometime. And I do think that Bob is possibly a disinformation agent. I do think the center of the wagon wheel is John Lear. John Lear is responsible for the Dulce story. Him and Cherry Hinkle, a.k.a. Van West, they came up with it. They said they had a guard, Thomas Costello, that gave them 5 drops where he had pictures and all this stuff in, but none of it ever panned out. And on UFO Hunters, they showed Pat Eskert and Bill Burns' drawings of the aliens at Dulce as proof, and that was not proof. And I talked to Pat Eskert, and he just laughed it off, and it's part of the reason why he got out of ufology. That was a good show, by the way, UFO Hunters. I love that show. But what's really weird, man, is I was sent a link this morning saying, "Hey, Dan, here you are on NASA's Unexplained Files," and I never even knew this link existed. It showed my name and all that shit, and right after that, I posted that. About 2.5 hours later, I'm sitting at a local place I go into, and a few people came here and wanted to talk to me, and I spoke with them, and it's basically the same people that spoke with another friend of mine yesterday, and I'm not real fucking happy about it, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know how to handle it, and
we'll
I'm just
see,
sick of this fucking topic. I'm sick of it, and I'm sorry I'm being harsh, but Jeremy, me, and Michael Schrapp are going to do a show. We've been planning it out for weeks, and Michael was aboard, and all of a sudden Michael gets a call, and then I don't get a call. This is the second time this has happened to me where I've been approached. And it's like, basically, I'm kind of told that my vision or what I believe is wrong, and that I'm to believe something else. And I'm told facts that are bullshit, and they know I know they're bullshit. And it's not a comfortable thing, guys. I mean, I used to get harassed when Ed was alive. And Jeremy,
you wonder if
if
counterintelligence is out there, right? If they have Pentagon counterintelligence or government.
Jeremy, tell them how many computers I went through last year alone. When Ed died, I went through four brand new computers, and Best Buy hated me. And the only reason I went through them was I knew this was going to happen, and I bought a warranty, and they had to replace a computer each time. Every time I talked about Ed, my computer would be gone the next day.
Someone just mentioned
Ed's obituary is really strange. It doesn't make any sense.
Ralph Ring and the Otis Carr stuff, man, those guys are frauds too. They basically Ralph Ring just took elements of Thomas Townsend Brown stuff and mixed Tesla with it, and it's like he has no science, no legitimate experiments or no legitimate science. He's just a quack. So yeah, you don't even. I wouldn't even bother even paying any attention. Then there's no experiments.
Is it again?
With that.
Ralph who?
Ralph Ring and the Otis Carr stuff. Someone I forgot to mention it when I was talking about all the anti-gravity and propulsion stuff. Okay, also the Lathwaite, Eric Lathwaite. I'd like to. Another interesting idea was maybe try some rotational inertia and.
Well, remember, I want to bring something up that I heard you talking earlier.
Momentum.
Remember the Tord that Ed talked about. You had a magnetic field disruptor. The Tord had a mercury-based plasma. And I want people to look up the following UFO case. I want people to type in Denise Murter, M-U-R-T-E-R, Bucks County, B-U-C-K-S, County, Pennsylvania, which is not far from me. And look into her case and listen to what she says. And look at the picture she took. The one picture I sent to you was a lean down flying triangle. And I spoke to this woman. And I said, look, she was seeing the thing at nighttime like 8 times. The thing dumped beryllium all over her house and all over her leaves, and no one believed her from MUFON until they started testing the ground. And there's no reason for beryllium, and there was another heavy metal that was all over her. Maybe it wasn't beryllium. Hold on a minute here. What's the one that begins with a C, Jeremy? You have to look into the case. And
yeah, this is what I'm talking about, man. There's so many interesting cases that with much more legitimacy than Bob Lazar and then stuff out there that we could literally make a whole show out of just investigating and doing research into these cases.
Well, here's the whole thing. When they found out that this stuff was in the leaf, she said it looked like pixie dust flying down through the air, and she described what looked like a large triangle, and that black picture is the triangle taken through her camera back in the 90s, you know, when you didn't have the phone now of the day, but it's a digital photo, and you can see it's the same thickness as the TR3B. It's 20% of the length. The thickness is always going to be 20% of the length. So if the thing is 200 feet thick, we're going to have about 40 feet in thickness. Ed claimed the version that he seen was 250. The operational version that they were hoping to use was 600 feet. I can show you countless videos and testimony where people saw a 600-foot flying triangle. And when they draw the thing, if you look up UFOs over Illinois, it's fucking identical to what Ed drew in the 80s. How could he be that psychic? And Ed was there. Ed was not someone that bullshits and lies and says he was there. His record shows he was there. Ed's been dead since May of 2017. It's kind of awkward that Ed died the day that he went to the VA. He died the day he went to the VA, and he wanted to talk to me really freaking bad. And we talked for 5 hours, and he died that night. It's just strange circumstances.
You know what's crazy, right, is that Ed Boucher, right, it's the day after he died was when all that fake news about the TR3B came out with the flying triangle. This fucking thing. This thing.
That patent.
This patent. It was blown up on third phase of the moon, and all these channels put it out there.
They put it out everywhere, and that one guy argued with me and tried to tell me that I didn't know Ed, some Indian guy, idiot of a channel. And then when I showed him 3 videos of myself, then he goes, well, how do I know you're who you say you are? I'm like, well, contact me on Facebook, you idiot.
Yeah, and I know. These people will believe, they'll believe anything, but they won't believe the truth when it's the truth could literally smack them in the fucking side of the face, and they wouldn't
the story is he kept forward with the disinformation after I showed him the truth, and he was talking about Ed, and he has probably like 200,000 views on his bullshit video, and I had told him after 3,000 views he was wrong, and I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but I'm here to tell you, I know people that worked on the program. I don't give a shit no more. It's true. The whole story's true. You have to believe either one or two things. Why in the 1980s, the early 1980s, did flying saucers turn into flying triangles? Why? Do you think the aliens all of a sudden changed their technology? You must believe that. That must be what you believe.
I don't think that any UFOs are aliens for the simple reason of metamaterials, and as I talked about before.
That's right. Who's the first one that brought metamaterials and quasi crystals up, Jeremy?
It's Ed. But the thing is, UFOs are unidentified flying objects. You wouldn't even be able to see an alien craft because they could be completely invisible unless they have their cloaking shields taken off. Then you'd see them, and only then.
And that whole gimbal craft
that's
thing.
Bullshit. These things flying around are ours. Everything that's flying around out there that's a UFO.
That's right.
Is ours.
That damn video.
The aliens are fucking invisible. They have very minimal, very limited contact. And most of the cases where there is aliens or something, it's either bullshit, people making it up, or it's government agents fucking with people and pretending to be aliens to try out neuralizer technology and brainwash weapons and all kinds of stuff. They have a technology, all right. You know that sleep paralysis stuff. That sleep paralysis. There's some part of your brain that turns on to like turn on and off sleep, and it puts you in that specific part of your dream state where you know how like you can dream and anything you experience, you don't remember shit when you wake up.
I know. And Jeremy, how many times have you and I discussed were you and I used? And we have to wonder, because I want to tell you something right now. Edgar Boucher.
I've had experiences with that sleep paralysis. It's happened to me once when I was in college. I swear, like, they freaking took control of my body. I was like awake. I could see everything. I could hear them in my room, come into my room, walking behind me, going through all my stuff, going through everything, and I couldn't move. Couldn't, like, it was the craziest feeling in the world, because I was like, I could hear them in my room. I could hear them going around. I could feel like I'm completely paralyzed, but I remembered it all when I woke up. I don't know if it
Jeremy,
was.
if you remember the day after Ed died, your apartment got broken into. You called me and you didn't even know Ed was dead. I'm like, you're like, dude, somebody just broke. Remember, your door was bashed down and shit. And you're like, they were looking for a photograph.
Yeah,
And
yeah. They repaired my friggin' frame of my door. That was when Ed. That
yeah,
was. But
they broke your door down. That slideshow, which meant the world to me, which I have photographs of, it's gone. We looked for it over and over, and I knew where I had it. It was right next to the John Lear videos. It is gone, and I cherished it with everything I had. And it was Ed's IUFOC presentation, and then some. There were a couple of aircraft on there that were mind blowing, and it seems to me that someone probably took it when I was in Daytona, Florida, or somewhere. I never really looked for it. I mean, I put it one place, and that was it. Should have took a couple people. I had photographs of it. And the whole thing is this, guys. What they love to do is just like a magician does, look at the left hand while the right hand's actually doing the work. And Michael has casework like you wouldn't freaking believe. He has UFO stuff that is shit you people would not even be able to comprehend. Reports, MUFON stuff, all kinds of stuff. Him and I were on the phone the other day. I'm sure everything was recorded, and we were talking about what we were going to go over. The next thing you know, he gets a phone call from ATIP. I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but I have his name. Still working for them, which shocked me. And the same organization, but a higher up authority of them, which would be their boss, is the ones that contacted me today. And I spoke with briefly for a little bit. But I typically come out swinging if somebody comes after me. But this is, you know who they are. I mean, it's very, they're not assholes, but this is the second time this has happened. The first time it was two guys. This is about 7 or 8. And they seem to be pretty serious guys, and I know exactly what they were trying to tell me. So if I'm not really up to talking about Ed anymore, as I was told years ago to stop. And my life goes far better when I don't talk about Ed. So, and as you know, I don't even post anything about Ed anymore on my channel.
Dude, they've erased him, man. They want to talk about erase, like Bob Lazar, the man the government erased, and all this bullshit. Like, he's not
Jeremy, if you remember on Crow 77's video, he has a video of the moon where there's a freaking TR-3B. It flies past the silhouette of the moon. It's not on the moon, but it's between there, and you see 3 lights in a triangle that fly over. And I had put on there, it's called Crow 77 Spaceship Over the Moon or something like that. It's real easy to find. And it's a TR-3B, and he closens up on it, stuff like that. And I started writing, and I use my real name. I don't go by any sock account. I had hundreds and hundreds of replies to me. They're all gone. Every single one of them gone. It's bizarre, man. I mean,
well, a lot of people
why
are like,
would someone,
they're censoring
swears
our
to God,
comments. They delete our comments and censor us
Yes.
because they don't want the truth getting out. Like, I
That's
feel
exactly
too.
right. Or there's no way possible that from what I'm going to tell you or what Ed told anybody, you could ever build this craft ever and get it operational. Good luck, because it's not going to happen. There's 98% you don't know. Ed just gives you the craft, what it's called, and by the way,
he gives us a bunch of
no one
raw
ever
information. He didn't give us anything serious about the propulsion system and no science
He
whatsoever.
threw red herrings in. Each engine in the corner is not a multi-mode rocket engine. He threw red herrings in there because that's what he had to do. That's what it's all about. But
I don't know if I believe in that. I'm into, you know, just doing the science experiments and testing out the technology and seeing if there's anything.
Well, here's the thing then. If you believe, okay, you have to look at UFOs over Illinois, and you have to look at all these cases. It's either one or the other. It's either aliens or us or a foreign government. What do you believe? I mean, these triangles exist. I don't care what you say. There's way too many people who've seen them and drawn them, and there's no freaking way they could have known. And UFOs over Illinois, you got 5 or 6 cops chasing the thing in the year 2000. The Belgium incident,
The Phoenix Lights, yeah. All these
but the
giant
Phoenix
triangles.
Lights, I believe, were not. There's 2 Phoenix Lights. There's the 815 incident and the 1030 incident. The 815 incident came out of Area 51 and then flew back up around. It's more like what was seen over Hudson, New York. It's more of a boomerang craft, not a TR-3B. They covered it up with the 1030 incident, which were high altitude flares that drop very slowly. They have flares that will stay in the air for a long, long time. Type in artillery flare and you'll be shocked at how long those things take to hit the ground. And they were launched by the Maryland National Guard. That was a cover up of the 815 incident.
I thought they could have been also projected lights like Project Bluebeam. They have that laser technology that can.
Well, that's another question. What if the TR-3B is just a projection? I personally feel that Bob brought up a relevant point yesterday on Larry King, and I don't say that Bob is 100% bullshitting.
He has to throw in elements of truth to
right.
Make, all good from disinformation has some elements of truth. It's 80% truth.
The whole thing with Bob is this, man. Why haven't they come out and discredited the guy? There's a couple of answers for that. Well, one is the CIA and the Air Force love the UFO cover story to hide during clandestine projects. At the same time, they certainly don't want busloads of people going to Area 51 and freaking filming everything that flies over. I mean, what's his name, Bill Cooper was there filming stuff for a while, Norio Hayakawa. And by the way, Glenn Campbell is healthy. Send Glenn Campbell your messages. Look up Glenn Campbell's page. He's free of cancer. I think he got it from Area 51. If you all know who Glenn Campbell is, that guy had the Area 51 Research Center. He's the one that ran, the other hand, or the pros and cons of Bob Lazar. He's the Dalai Lama or something on YouTube. If you type in Glenn Campbell, you'll find him. That guy right there gave his career up and lived down there for years in a trailer and ran the Area 51 Research Center. And Ed and him had a talk one time for a day. Ed spent a day with them down there. And you got to look into these guys that were around at the time. Your Garnou's site. I mean, these guys know Peter Merlin. There's no way you can spend 6 days at a facility like S4 and learn shit. And the story about Los Alamos not knowing what they were machining or fusing together is the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. Any company that gets anything in is going to have an MSDS sheet on it. It's going to explain everything about that material. How would you fuse it together if you don't know melting points? And what machines do they use to do that? A heavy element would tear apart machining equipment also. Bob says he discovered that it was element 115 by using a spectrum analyzer and X-ray the other day. And he also now recently claims that the crafts were an archaeological dig, which he never said before. He said they were dug up out of the ground. And
I got a picture of Glenn Campbell with John Hutchison Kmart alien.
Yeah, I mean, Glenn Campbell's a truther, man. I mean, whether you like it or not, people like me are hated because I've dug so far into the truth that I know so much shit about the Lazar case that people don't know about. And then when I challenge them on YouTube, I hear back from them like a day later because they have to research everything I said on Google in one paragraph, and they come back with a half-assed result because they don't know the story. I mean, they don't know it. And Jeremy knows I put more time into this. I put more time in this story than anybody you know. I guarantee you. Ask Jeremy. I have, and I have a lot of technical questions. Why would Bob quit Los Alamos? Why? Why would you, if you're a physicist and you're a graduate out of MIT, why would you quit Los Alamos to become a photo processor in Las Vegas after about 8 months? Why? Because you were on a contract through Kirkmeyer and they moved you.
And a pimp.
And a pimp. Yeah, he was running a brothel, the Honeysuckle Ranch, which was legal in Reno with some people from Asia. And then he ran an illegal brothel in, I think, from 89 till 91. And George Knapp now comes out on the Atomic Museum video and says, I'm the one that told on Bob. Gee, that was real smart, George, you know, and this bullshit about, well, they discredited Bob, wanted to throw the book at him. No, if they wanted to throw the book at him, they wouldn't have given him a suspended 4-year state prison sentence. They would have sent him to state prison. You know, it's just a lot of weird variables about Bob, and I don't dislike Bob. I think he's a very interesting guy. The problem I have is I don't think he's that smart, because he draws these drawings and shows that each bay for each craft was 40 feet wide. And in the same drawing, the sport model's 52.8 feet wide. Okay, how in the fuck did you even fit it in the hangar? I mean, and the bullshit about not being able to touch the reactor, how did you deactivate it? There's no switches or nothing, you know? And he said they turned the emitter somehow, and he couldn't remember how they did that. He told me on an email.
Yeah, bullshit.
Jeremy, tell him about the science of it. I mean, the science of it is just, and you know, we're just beating a dead horse. I'm just trying to get people that are on the fence to go look at the case, look at the facts. I don't care about people that were like I was 15 years ago, where I didn't give a fuck what anybody said. I believe the story, even though I reserved doubt. In the back of my mind, I used to lay in bed every night and be like, Bob's lying. But I don't care. I want to believe it. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. There's a lot of people out there listening to that right now that are reserving doubt. That's the only reason they're listening to it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to touch those people. People, don't let your minds be.
Your mind plays tricks on you, dude. You want that easy answer. You want that entertainment. It's
yeah. I mean,
it's like a fantasy.
And I'm
it's
sorry,
like a switch.
I'm sorry I've ranted so long, but I've had a stressful day. And
well, no, it's all right, man. And you did bring up a lot of interesting people and a lot of interesting points, man. So yeah, let's focus on the real stuff, dude.
I would like to tell names of people that I know and shit like that, but I know people that were involved with Ed, and some of them are protectors of myself. One I called today and told him what had happened. He said, don't worry about it. And he's 74 years old. And
but it's just ridiculous. I mean, I can't even watch Jeremy Corbell anymore. The guy's such a friggin' liar.
Well, Jeremy Corbell is the same as your heel on professional wrestling. I don't like the way he treated Stanton Friedman. Jesus Christ. Stanton Friedman's putting in more leg work. You didn't have any internet when Stanton was doing what he did. He's 85 or 86 years old. I didn't like the way Corbell treated him on stage. And Jesus, if you look at the comments, I mean, no one did.
Yeah, Corbell ignored all the importance and all the questions and just went on with this same bullshit, the same fucking stuff over and over.
Yeah. With that said, the strange thing about it is, I talked to Corbell. Him and I'll message him because he knows I'm one of Bob's skeptics. I don't hate the guy, because the guy is just basically out to make a name for himself. And I don't know what all is going on with him, but the thing I will bring up is, dude, if you ever debate me about Bob Lazar, put 10 grand on the table and I guarantee I'll wipe you clean, because you won't even have a chance against me. And that, I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I know, man. I see all the people like trying to get Bob Lazar on Joe Rogan and stuff, and he won't go on Joe Rogan because Joe Rogan's not a no bullshit type dude, and I guarantee you, Lazar sticks to these easy scripted interviews where they have a pre-selected script with all the questions that they're going to ask ahead of time, and that's the only type of interviews you ever see Bob give or get on.
But you saw when I asked Jeremy on his page about going on Joe Rogan, he said, I'm not sure what was it, he's going to play ball or play fair or something like that. Well, come on, man. I mean, if Bob's telling the truth, you got to be able to
give him a fair shake, and he'd be able to come out on top if he's telling the truth.
And Bob is still went on camera and lied about those damn degrees, you know. And it's like, you know, I don't hate Bob Lazar. What I hate about him, though, is that he wasted so many years of my fucking life.
He's wasting all these years of all these other people's life who are going to be researching this stuff for and following it, and hopefully they don't get stuck down the same paths.
It is interesting though. What if Bob was hypnotized? What if Bob's a disinformant?
The idea is like, you know, he's best friends with John Lear. He's been poking around
the wagon wheel for years. Of every story
he goes to friggin' the wagon wheel center of every UFO story that comes out, right? And then all of a sudden Bob's hanging out with John Lear, going over his house, meets him through Gene Huff, introduces him, you know, and they're hanging out, and then all of a sudden Bob gets a job. Oh, Bob, I just got a call. I'm gonna go work, and I went for an interview at EG&G and all this stuff. I mean, he obviously
everybody says would be qualified for the job. I mean, he even says I'd be the least person qualified. And then they say, well, it was a controlled release. Well, that's totally impossible because the controlled
release, nothing, dude. Like, assuming they had hired him to be a janitor and like gave him the litmus test of like, you know, like, all right, well, this is a litmus test to see if you can work here and keep secrets. So we're gonna bring you to this. Maybe the S4 is just like this hangar with all like a VZ9 Abercar and a bunch of like old, you know, saucer shaped craft in it that they just bring people to and tell them a bunch of bullshit stories with that. They have the blue folders that they have them read for 2 days, and then they give them a tour of this, and they just to see if they squawk. Maybe that's the litmus test. Maybe that was like the whole litmus test that they bring people through just to see if they squawk, so that if they do, all they have is a disinformation story that doesn't mean, and you know, that doesn't mean anything, won't go anywhere. That's the best case scenario I can give for Lazar, that he actually made it to an interview at AG&G, to a job.
If people know the Lazar story,
if people know EG&G
and they go listen to the Larry King interview, you will see Bob makes a big mistake in the way he tells the order of the way things happen one time, the way he tells the order of things happen another time. I saw it right away. I texted Shrat, and Shrat didn't even notice it. And I was like, dude, I mean, now it's happened another way. The way he was let go from Area 51 or S4, you know, one time it's because his wife's supposedly a whore and cheating on him. The next time it is, you know, he says an unstable home life. The other time it's because he had taken Gene Huff and John Lear out there, and Bob Lazar, or John Lear says, Bob was taken to Indian Springs. This is a quote. John Lear says, Bob, when we brought you into the program, you weren't supposed to bring all your friends out here to see the flying saucers. Now, do you want to work on the program or not? And Bob said no after that and left. You've got two different stories. One is it was an unstable home life because she was cheating on him with an airline, with her flight instructor, which is ridiculous because he was running a prostitution ring, you know. And I think that's the excuse he used for running that illegal brothel in Las Vegas at nighttime to his wife. Hey, I'm not around at night because I'm working on a classified program. Meanwhile, you can read the reports from the Las Vegas Sun from Tony Bullock, and her last name is Bulloch. He pled guilty because he was collecting 50% of the profits from this illegal brothel at the Something Cove apartment complexes. It doesn't even matter. It's fact. Why would you plead guilty to something you didn't freaking do? And it's that little of prison time. 4 years, that's nothing. You get out in 12 months with good behavior in Nevada because it's not a violent crime. He was charged with multiple felonies. There are people digging up the FOIAs on that right now. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Bob did use the alias Dennis Mariani in 1986 or 1987 before he ever used that name as his boss. I've seen it already on court paperwork in civil cases. And now, since over 25 years old, you've got to go in the courthouse and have them print the shit out. So I don't live in Las Vegas. So if any of you live in Las Vegas, go in there and ask them to print out all files on Bob Lazar from 1980 on, just to be safe.
Yep.
And look at all the civil judgments, the bankruptcies and all that, because he had borrowed over $300 and some thousand, the equivalency to about $1 million today, and didn't pay anybody back, including his own family. And he filed bankruptcy in 86. He filed it again. This is, if you are recklessly spending money and you're a risk financially, they will not give you top secret clearance ever, because then you're a risk for espionage. That's a fucking fact. Now, if you have a little deal where you're back on your mortgage and stuff like that because of some medical issue, they'll overlook that. But not a guy that's recklessly borrowing money and not paying anybody back.
Yeah, thousands of dollars. That's his record right here. He's
hundreds of thousands in the 80s, which is equivalent. I think I racked it up the other day, is equivalent to $850,000 in today's market. Imagine if somebody borrowed that much money from a bank and didn't pay it back.
And the funniest thing too is that stupid video of him in the Lazar tapes where he pulls up in that Corvette with the license plate MJ12 and does that whole video.
And says he's not into UFOs. He's not into studying UFOs, but he knows a shitload about UFOs. He's bullshitting. He copied Bill.
He does know all about UFOs. Well, the thing is that Corvette, dude, he basically borrowed it with money he didn't have, and then it was repossessed prior to the bankruptcy filing.
It's a Maroon ZR1. Back in the day, that was a 400 horsepower car. That's a badass car. Back in the day, that was the car to have. I know that car very well.
Crazy though.
ZR1. It was Maroon. He had MJ12 on the license plate, but he's not into UFOs. But one of my
also, he doesn't care about attention. He doesn't want the attention. Doesn't want he doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't want you to believe it.
But he drives around in a jet car and jet bikes, and like that's not drawing attention to yourself, and gives articles and
Type in jet dragster 1980.
He's addicted to the limelight. He's addicted to getting up. He loves getting up there in front of people. You can tell he gets excited out of it.
Well, I wouldn't say he gets excited out of it. He seemed like he had social anxiety disorder. But you know why? I was told by several different people that they were looking for me and Michael Schratt in the audience. And if you remember, Jeremy Corbell wouldn't let anybody from the audience talk. He answered questions from people on Twitter and his phone, basically. I think the one guy was his brother, for God's sakes. He didn't take any questions that would have questioned the schooling or anything like that, because they only want you to know one side of the narrative. Fuck the other side. Don't look at this side. Don't look at the bad side. Don't look at the stuff. And that stuff, and Bob says in the video that you show, from his movie, you got to have evidence to back up every statement you make. Well, he doesn't have any evidence to back up anything he says.
I know, it's ridiculous. He says all those little things to gain credibility and to gain people's trust. And it's a con man's tactics. I wouldn't say anything unless I'm absolutely sure about, yeah, sure. No,
well, Jeremy, I'd love to see you and him sit down, because I know what you're capable of in physics and mathematics, and you would annihilate him.
I could just ask him questions about MIT. I'd be like, well, which dorm did you live at? Where did you stay on campus, or did you rent it? Where was your apartment? Where did you live? Where was
your favorite place?
Was your favorite? Was your I would ask him all these questions about Cambridge. Well, where else did you go when you lived? You lived in Cambridge, right? So where else did you go? Did you ever go out? What was the nightlife like there? Where? Ask him all these questions about stuff like that if he really went there.
Here's something everybody else needs to know. If you believe Lou Elizondo and ATIP, and I know Dr. Hal Puthoff, I met him through Edgar Fouché. Hal Puthoff never freaking believed Bob Lazar. I can probably pull up the old emails from Ed that he forwarded me from Hal. Hal Puthoff laughed at Bob Lazar. Hal Puthoff's an incredible physicist. If you believe ATIP, then you can't believe Bob, because all ATIP would have had to have done, and to the Stars Academy is who I'm basically referring to now, is go to S4 or go to where they moved the project, whether it be Utah, the Tonopah Test Range, Sandia, China Lake, Edwards Air Force Base, wherever, or Area 51 would be the greatest place to move it, just in the southeastern corner. No one would ever freaking see it, right? In order to believe what they're saying about ATIP, right? When Lou Elizondo was there, the hardware, all they ever would have had to do was go to wherever S4 is now, because supposedly the conspiracy theorists say, well, they must have bulldozed it over. That's why we can't see it anymore. Yeah. They'd have put hundreds of millions of dollars into this place, and my ass. Bob would have never made it to John Lear's front door fucking step. He would have had threat assessment people following him 5 or 6 at a time. If he was involved in a program, especially if there was only 22 of them, especially if you're only there 6 times in 1 year. Anyways, if you believe Lou Elizondo and you believe To the Stars Academy, email Dr. Hal Putoff and ask him what he thinks about Bob Lazar. I'll laugh. He does not believe Bob Lazar. However, him and Ed Boucher were really good friends, and he absolutely believed Ed. This is fact. I've listened to Ed talk to Hal Putoff. I have emails that Hal Putoff and Ed talking back and forth, and I've read them. And I've emailed Hal before and talked to him briefly, and he is the main guy. I guarantee you, he runs To the Stars Academy, guaranteed. But with that said, all they would have had to ever do to get their hands on hardware was go and find these 9 UFOs that Bob now claims is a geological dig up, he thinks. He never said that before, but he did say it on Coast to Coast AM right before the movie came out. He never said that before. The story has changed. It's bullshit. And
so, what do you think about To the Stars Academy and Hal Putoff and what they're doing or trying to do? I
okay.
really it's crazy how Tom DeLonge like kind of just tainted the whole thing and made a fool out of himself on Joe Rogan.
Oh my God, with that fake TR3B video, Joe Rogan laughed about it. I'll just say this. Hal Putoff is part of the aviary, so it's John Alexander, a number of people. Hal Putoff's very real. Hal Putoff's an incredible physicist. Hal Putoff ran SRI, Stanford Research Institute.
I read a bunch of his papers and stuff. He's got some interesting ideas, but
he was friends with Ed, and to the point where Ed could call him on the phone, he'd answer and say, "Hey, Ed," you know. Now, when it comes to Hal Putoff and To the Stars Academy, I half believe that Tom DeLonge was used to grab hold of the youth of America, you know, people, millennials, 20 and up, whatever, because people like that band. I'm not very into that kind of music. You know, I've been playing guitar for 30 years.
Yeah,
it's just not my it's not my type
power
of stuff.
Power chords
but,
and down picking don't do it for you.
Yeah, I could fucking not even close. I like technical shit, you know that.
Yeah.
Very technical. But anyways, but I'm not saying the guy's not a talented songwriter. I mean, he's captivated a ton of people, and they're going to do a tour again. But here's the whole thing. What an embarrassment it was when Tom DeLonge went on Joe Rogan's show. I mean, I was sitting there in disbelief watching this and was like, are you fucking kidding me? This guy's supposed to, and remember, Tom DeLonge, Ed called me one night on the phone. He goes, hey, I got to talk to you for a minute. Ed used to have a few drinks a night. He had PTSD and his body was fucked up, and he broke his back in the Air Force, and he had heart surgery from being in an accident in the Air Force. And he was on painkillers, and Ed drank. It was towards the end of his life. He was in the 60s. Jeremy will verify this. And Ed liked his maker's mark. Ed calls me one night and goes, hey, I'm going to push a guy off on you that I really don't fucking, this is how Ed talks. I really don't give a fuck about talking about. This is like late at night, you know, 1 or 2 in the morning, you know, right, Jeremy? And
yeah,
I'm like,
I think I remember him calling me about the same thing. And
some asshole. He goes, some asshole claiming he's a rock star. He goes, I don't give a shit if it's Robert Plant. He goes, he wants to talk to me about the TR3B. I'm like, okay, well, what's his name? He's like, I don't know, Tom something. I'm like, Tom something. And this is probably, man, 2014 or so. I'm like, Tom something. And I'm like, I couldn't think at all. I didn't know anything about Tom DeLonge back then. Then finally it was brought up as Tom DeLonge. And I was like, that's so funny, because Ed doesn't give a fuck who the guy is. He could care less. He's like, he wasn't part of anything. He doesn't mean shit to me. I could care less. And I know where he got Ed's information at from Hal Putoff. He was calling Ed on the phone and texting him. And emailing him. And I have the emails in here where Ed insulted him and Kerry Cassidy. It's pretty funny. But I tried to talk to Tom DeLonge after Ed died, and I had his information and all that, and he had already wrote Secret Machines with a K, and he uses 2 generals in there. One is General McCaskill, And there's another general that claimed that the TR3B was possible or real or something like that. I'm not sure what, but he really wanted to know the truth from Ed. I'm just going to say that Tom was trying to diligently do his research, and he really wanted to talk to Ed. But you know how Ed was, Jeremy. He didn't care. He didn't give a fuck who you were. You're a rock star. Oh, well. To him, you're nothing unless you're a military colonel or general or someone that worked in classified programs. You didn't care. Ed was a mentor to me and Jeremy in some aspects, for sure. Wouldn't you say, Jeremy?
Yeah, for a number of years on the forum and stuff, man. Like
Talked you into going back. He talked you into going back to college, man, and getting your physics degree. For sure, he did.
Yeah,
right?
Hasn't done me much good, but you know.
Well, you're not the only one, man. I got degrees too, and I'm not using any of them right now. I'd like to run a pimp operation out of Las Vegas and claim that I saw flying saucers with S10 and see how it works.
Man, do the lecture circuit and get paid, you know.
I'd
How about some Japanese film crew comes out and you know, pays you the money to do an interview, and then you just stiff them on it and take the money and don't do it. Like
man, like anybody that doesn't believe that, look up Norio Hayakawa. He's the one that arranged that. Bob stiffed them, but they wanted Bob to come to freaking Japan, and they gave him $5,000 as good faith money, and he never showed up. But that's old news too. But a lot of people, all they have is their word, and if you look at Bob's word over and over, his word's just not any good, man. It's just not. He didn't go to the schools he went to. When his mother was on the video, Corbell, if you're watching this, show me the video part that you edited out where you asked Bob about his mother and father at his graduations from Caltech and MIT. Please show me that, and his undergrad school. I want to see what she says, because I have a feeling either you didn't ask her those questions, or you asked them, you didn't get the correct answer, because you did say to Stanton Friedman, so what if you didn't go to those schools? It's huge, because the government would never hire a guy to work on a fucking reactor that could blow up half of the United States. Think about this, people. Think about this. Jesus Christ. This reactor that Bob talks about, okay?
I know, it's crazy.
Allegedly could wipe out half the United States if not operated properly. The guy had no training on it. They're fucking around with it in the lab. Give me a break. Give me a break, people. You've got to think about this and freaking put your mind to work. I have. It's not weaponize your curiosity. It's use your intelligence and do your research. Don't look at a one-sided part of the story. Study the science. Talk to physicists, look at what particle physicist Eric Davis has to say, and go ask any particle physicist if this story makes any sense, because I've asked at least 10, and none of them, and one of them is a cousin of mine, said this story is well-known bullshit. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. It's impossible.
But people believe it hardcore, man, and overall the better shit that's out there. But anyways, I'm getting tired, man. I want to wrap this up. It's almost nearing the 2-hour mark and stuff.
I know I raged for about an hour, man. I'm just in a fucking pissed off mood right now.
Dude, I don't blame you, man. I didn't know you were on IMDb, and they kicked me right off that show. They kicked me off that when I was doing research, and I debunked all the shit that they were going to put out in that show, and I sent the producers a whole list of all of it with the debunks, and gave them all the information, and I flipped total script on them, and they dropped me from that show. They didn't even want to interview me.
The piece of triangle, which they claimed was
in the show, they still went forward and claimed it, even though I showed them that it was bullshit. And
yeah, but I want to tell you something that's ridiculous about that part. Okay, if that was a big chunk of the heat shield that fell off, that son of a bitch would have burned up coming back through the atmosphere like the other one did, supposedly. I don't buy that's part of the heat shield.
Well, it's still up in orbit. It hasn't entered the atmosphere yet. What do you mean?
What do you mean they had to come back down through the orbit without that piece of that triangle is piece of the heat shield.
Yeah.
It fell out, and it's inches thick, and if that piece is missing, and each tile is very specific, there's not one tile that's identical to the other. There is a repair kit to fix that they came up with after the other disaster. How did they re-enter the atmosphere with a chunk that big missing out? Because it doesn't matter where it is, Jeremy. That whole bottom of that craft comes in like this, and it's 3,900 degrees, I believe. How would it not had an effect and gone through and melted the craft? That's my point. If that's part of the heat shield, they have a huge problem.
Yeah,
Am
I
I
think
right or wrong?
it's well, I don't think it's the only heat shield. I think it's redundancy, the exterior full, I'm sure it's built with some redundancy in it. So
It's the ceramic-based tiles, man. They're
oh yeah, it's a special freaking tile. They showed like they put it in an oven of like thousands of degrees, and then they pull it out, and like the guy picks it up with his hand, and it's cool. It's a weird ass material.
Yeah, I know a little bit about that material actually. It's very special the way it's made, but there is a repair kit that they had to fix portions of that. And here's my point: it's a pretty damn big piece. Okay, it's a corner of a tile. If it's part of its triangle, it's the corner. It's a corner. And if that whole piece is missing, okay, how did it not penetrate the rest of the fucking shuttle and burn the thing up? How did it not do it?
Yeah.
They would have had to. It's the way it is. I could be wrong, but I know I'm not. I hate to be arrogant, but that's what they blame. What shuttle burned up that time when it was re-entering the atmosphere, but they showed it was hit by supposedly hit by a purple beam that looked like lightning in space over Texas and all that. I can't remember which mission it was, but that was heat tower related. When they claimed that when it launched, they showed something bouncing off the shuttle and it busted part of the tile off, and therefore when it came back in. But here's the thing they don't tell you: they have cameras scanning the outside of that craft, and they go over one tile at a time, one tile at a time, one tile, one tile, one tile. How did they not see that tile was freaking almost half missing? It had to be half of it, at least the corner of it. How did they, if that's one piece that's floating along with the shuttle, where's the rest of it? Had to shatter off. And here's another thing: how did it shatter off when it was in orbit? How did it shatter off when it was hit by a meteor? It's with the craft in orbit. That means that it fell off while it was in orbit, was flying along with the craft. The last time this happened, it fell off during launch, okay? And when it went up into space and then came back down in, it burned up. To believe what they say, and they fucking asked me 3 hours about flying triangles and then show me for shit on NASA's unexplained files talking about flying triangles at all. There's at least 3 hours of a 5-hour interview. It's exhausting. To believe what they say, Jeremy, and you probably never thought about this before, that piece of that tile had to fall off while the craft was there and bounce away and orbit. It was in orbit with the shuttle. So how did that happen? What hit it while it was up in the air?
I don't know, man. Again, those guys.
You have to think about it logically. You have to explain that.
Hey, I'm gonna go to bed and not think about it. I'm gonna think about how to reverse engineer alien propulsion and energy.
Now, here's what I think. I think they bullshitted that high definition picture, and I believe they filmed something they knew they shouldn't have. And I don't believe a word of that thing being that high definition photo. I just don't. It was too convenient. It was too convenient. It came out when they knew a year ahead of time that we were doing that show. They were following our emails. They were following Ed's emails. And then all of a sudden that high definition picture shows up out of nowhere, and it's the part of a tile. Bullshit. It had to be hit while it was in orbit for it to track the same orbit.
I wish I could go. I might go back and find out where I got that. When I first, if someone sent that to me or what. But
I can show you. It's on the Living Moon.
Someone sent it to me. No.
It is interesting. It is interesting. But for you to believe that, it had to have come off when the craft was in orbit, because if it's still flying and it flies off, it would have took a different trajectory, because the rockets are flying the craft into the orbit that it was in. So it was right along with the craft. Maybe it did break off right while the craft was there, but it should have been much closer than where it was. I'm just saying, you got to think about it the way I'm thinking about it as a technical standpoint. It's bullshit. There's no way that thing is in the same orbit. It's not. It's impossible. Unless it fell off at the same time, which means the craft was hit while they were in orbit, and they certainly would have detected where that happened because the thing burned up before flying back through with no heat shield on it, no heat tile or a portion of it missing. Just a thought, food for thought.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go to bed and wrap this up, man. Thanks for watching, and have a good night, guys. We'll bring you more.
Good, everybody,
I
man.
wasn't so tired. I'm falling asleep, and
I am too. I'm wired up, man. I'm just fucking heated from today, brother. And everybody have a good night. I don't mean to rant, but I have some days where I'm ready to just freak the hell out, and today's one of them. So take care, everybody. Have a good one. Feel free to message me or Jeremy on Facebook.
yeah, more information's coming soon. So
Yep. Later, everybody. Later, Jeremy.
good night.